this video I'm going to be demonstrating how to take apart Western Electric dials for modification or repair. So I'm going to be demonstrating two different dials. One of them is a Princess Phone illuminated dial. This one's a 35AD4A from 1973. And this dial, which is already taken apart, which has speakerphone compatibility. And so what I'm trying to do is make an illuminated key strip that can work with a speakerphone. So if you have these are two different Princess Phone dials. This one's from 1981. You can see this one here has flathead screws for all of the connections. So if you have a dial like this, it's much easier. However, in this video, I'm going to be taking apart this dial because this one has a chip in the 8 key. First off, you'll need to find a bit that fits the nuts on here. And also have a flathead screwdriver handy. So just put the pieces off to the side. And I recommend doing this on a flat surface so that you won't lose any pieces. So there you can see these are going to be our most troublesome spots. Then we can also remove this one. It uses the same type top screw-on piece. This one's unique compared to all the other screws. It's longer. And then there's also these two. So I'm just speeding up the video a bit. Once we have those two screws removed, then we can start on the tamper-proof screws. So here we get to the tough part, and I don't recommend doing this unless you absolutely have to. So you can see there's another nut underneath here in between this board and this piece of plastic. And it goes for all three of the screws that had those nuts on the top. And what I've done is just get a small pair of pliers that are able to fit within here and can loosen it. And sometimes I'll start on one of the more outer ones and just slowly work at it. And putting some oil in the top holes here can sometimes help. I've already oiled this one. So you can see it's starting to pop apart with the springs from the back of the keys. And honestly, I don't know why they have to use these stupid screws. It'd be 1,000 times easier if they would just use flathead screws like the non-tamper-proof or tamper-resistant dials. But they wanted to make them harder to take apart, so maybe this was just how they manufactured them. That was the only way they had to be able to do it, so So there you can see starts the chaos of these stupid things falling out, which we'll have to put back together when we're reassembling the dial. And the first time I did this was on my card dialer, because my phone was actually a demo version and did not contain any of the working components needed to actually call. So I had to replace the dial components because it's a 10-button version and I did not want to spend the expensive price tag of getting a 10-button dial. Additionally, though, it being a card dialer, there's extra wires soldered into it to actually make it work. I was planning on showing the cleaning process behind this as well, but I decided to leave it out as I thought it was too boring. If anyone's interested, please let me know. Here's a quick segment showing the placement of buttons inside of a Princess phone keypad. You can see what's interesting is because of the light bulb is placed here, the star key has a black paint on the back because it is the closest, so they needed to shade it so that it wouldn't receive too much light and be much brighter than the other keys. So here you can see is with the lower layer of metal poles going in. So you can see these two are identical and these two are identical. And the best way to identify it is the ones here and here, both. So you can see there's these points that stick up all along this side. And so as long as those points are all sticking up on this side only, you should be good, because these are what activate the make and break contacts here. Then the next layer of the dial is this plastic film. So you can see there's these little holes that need to go on these points. Now here's the top layer that has these ones. So these two here are identical and this one's different because this one, the flap is on this side, and these two are both on this side. And this gives you a pretty good idea of how these older keypads work. Then we need to put in the springs. For the Princess phone dial, I'm noticing the springs are much smaller in comparison than the springs that originally were in the speakerphone compatible dial. And so I'm going to put back in the Princess phone springs because they fit better in the Princess phone dial. So there you can see the top portion of the dial is all put back together. And now to the base piece. You'll notice that the Princess phone's base is painted white, which is to help with the light bulb. So you can see here, this piece is very important. This is sort of like a fiber optic plate. So there's a little notch here that fits into this hole, and that's just to hold it in place. And then you can see it goes around the light bulb right here. And so lucky for me, the dials are pretty much identical in every way, shape, and form, except for minor differences. So the holes that they drilled are even identical, so you can actually place one of these fiber optic plates inside, and I'm hoping it'll work. Alright, so this now is a reshoot with the non-illuminated keys going inside of the Princess dial. This is just to demonstrate how to get your dial back together. I eventually got my illuminated dial I was working on back together, but it took a lot more effort and time than I thought. So what I eventually figured out, the best method is to get this plate here onto the back to hold in the buttons. So now you'll see the armatures and stuff on the inside aren't able to fall out. And I guess if you wanted, you could glue this and it would make assembly a lot easier, but then you would never be able to get it apart again, so that's your choice. So then with this together, if you're doing the illuminated dial, there's going to be this plastic plate, as previously mentioned in the video, right here. And what I ended up doing was putting some tape across the top and right here on the bottom to hold it in temporarily. And then once I got it almost completely together, I removed the tape. So that's what I would recommend doing. So that will definitely help with assembly. Then the other thing I ended up doing was just putting this piece here that does the make and break contacts on the back of this piece. So it goes like this, I believe. There. So you should be able to see that that lines up. So then when you push a button, it should come down. So just try and have it lined up as much as possible like that. Then carefully take your dial, again with the illuminated plate on there, it's a bit more tricky, but same concept, and just carefully line it up. Try and get the screws all into their sockets, and then gently hold it together or use tiny clamps. I don't have any tiny clamps, so then begin the tedious process of screwing it back together while attempting to keep all the pieces from just falling apart. So now you can see we're getting to the point where we need to make sure all of these ones are lined up. There's still a tad bit of flexibility. Unfortunately, these switches don't like to stay put while you're screwing them in. So you can see this first set should be on either side of that first plastic nub. So that's where those should be. So there you can see, I think this one is supposed to go on the bottom. You can actually look at this dial. Yeah, you can see the one there is supposed to go on the bottom, so with this dial, that's the tension. The rest of them are all switches. I have to be careful to try not break them. I probably didn't do the best job on this one, getting them all lined up. But you can see that's how they should be, pretty much. And as we keep screwing it together, you have to make sure that top one on this side doesn't go over. And then I put the little nuts here upside down. I need the screwdriver again to tighten these back in. Now we just have the two flathead screws which go right here. And over here. And so hopefully that helps anyone who's trying to take apart and put back together a Western Electric tone dial, or potentially create your own brand new one that is customized like I did. If you have any questions or comments about this, just let me know. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. If there's any bits I missed, or if you have more info for me that might help, just let me know. I'm always happy to update the videos later on. I'll also post a link in the description eventually when I have this dial wired up and working, so you can see it in action. Thanks for watching this video, and be sure to check out the other videos on my channel.